Welcome on in, everybody, to another episode of MVP, the Mo Vaughn podcast, powered by Perfect Game and the Vaughn Sports Academy. And very excited to talk to our next guest, Mo. He is the president of the Negro League Baseball Museum. Bob Kendrick joining us here on MVP. Thanks for the time. Really appreciate it.
Listen,
man, it is my pleasure. Thank you guys for having me on the show.
Listen, we are everybody on the show out there in the land. We need to be very, very gracious that we could get this man on the show. A wealth of knowledge, you know, through the Negro Leagues. I'm excited to do this, man. This is going to be a great show. Bob, I guess my first question is, as a baseball player and being a black player in the game, what inspired you to dedicate your entire life to preserve the history, of the Negro Leagues? Like what to be that custodian? What were those thoughts? What was going through in your mind when you decided to take on the reins of this?
Mo, I stumbled into what would become my passion.
What?
Man, I started volunteering with the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, believe it or not, way back in 1993. Okay. And I walked into what was then a one-room office here at historic 18th and Vine that was the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. And as I tell particularly the young people that I talk to quite oftentimes these days, when I walked into that one-room office, I literally walked into what would become my passion. I fell in love with this fledgling museum. I fell in love with its mission. And even more so, I fell in love with the amazing athletes who made this story. And really, guys, it was their spirits. Their spirits just kind of grabbed hold of you. I think we all would have said, had they been bitter about the things that transpired in their lives as they were trying to play baseball in this country, every one of us would have said, you had every right to be bitter.
Absolutely.
To a ball player that I've ever met, not one of them ever harbored any bitterness or expressed any ill will toward anyone who may have attempted to perpetrate something against them. And I found this to be such an endearing kind of spirit. And it took me a minute, guys, to figure out how could this be? Well, number one, y'all, they were never going to be bitter about baseball. Because, Mo, you couldn't convince them that they weren't playing the best baseball that was being played. You see, everybody thought the best baseball was being played in the major leagues. But they never believed that. They knew how good their league was. They knew how good they were. And quite frankly, the major leaguers knew how good they were. They played countless exhibition games against one another. And the record books bear out that the Negro League teams or the Black All-Star teams won the majority of those head-to-head matchups. So they weren't going to be bitter about baseball. They didn't necessarily like the things that they had to deal with when they traveled this country, but they just seemingly would never allow that to harden their hearts. And man, when I got introduced to this story, and particularly as a baseball fan, I quickly realized how little I knew about the history of this game and the connections to the history of this country. And I've dedicated my last 32 years of my life to being a part of this organization and doing something that my dear friend, the late great Buck O'Neil, wanted us to do. And that was to make sure that they would never be forgotten.
I wore the number 42 in honor of Jackie Robinson. I learned that from a white guy who was my college coach. He was a Branch Rickey Jackie Robinson fan. He took care of me in college like I was his own son. But that was just on that level. This level that you're talking about is behind the scenes, all the information, all the knowledge. You speak of Buck O'Neil. Whenever I came to Kansas City, he was sitting in that dugout, and he'd come and sit me down, and he was just gracious and loving and caring and positive. And what a great man to be there. He was. I'm sure he was there with every home series, greeting all of us, and spreading the information.
Yes. Yeah, Derek Jeter still says to this day, he's a rookie, Mo, with the Yankees at that time. His first trip into Kansas City, and he says the first person to greet him at the K was Buck O'Neil.
Yes.
telling him how proud he was of him and how he was going to be great. And he never forgot that. Hell, Ichiro Suzuki, a kid from Japan, fell in love with Buck because Buck was there at Decay telling him the same thing. And guys, Buck could relate to Ichiro because here's this kid from Japan coming over. And the minute he says he's coming over to leave his league to come play in the major leagues, what did the critics say? Well, you did that in your league, but you won't do that in our league. And then he comes over here and lights up our league.
Right.
And see, Buck could relate to that because no matter what those Negro League players had accomplished in their league, the minute they transitioned into Major League Baseball, the naysayers said the exact same thing. Well, you did that in your league, you won't do it in our league. And so Buck could relate to what Ichiro was going through, and they formed this incredible bond. This kid from Japan and this elderly black man. And when Buck died, Ichiro sent flowers.
Right.
And the very next year, Buck died in '06. The very next year, Ichiro called me and wanted to come and meet with me because he wanted to do something special in remembrance of his friend. And he wrote a substantial check to the museum in honor of Buck because, as Ichiro would say, he admired Buck's style. You know, Mo, Buck was there, and he was always snazzily dressed. And
He had his hat on. He was on point, most definitely.
always. You know, King Griffith Jr. would say the same thing. Buck would come pick him up in that old Cadillac that he had. He'd come pick him up from the hotel and drive around and take him to places. He just wanted to inspire that next generation of ball players. Each time they came through Kansas City, the one constant presence was the late, great Buck O'Neil. And so now we have an opportunity to do what he wanted us to do. And that's to make sure that his museum is here so they won't be forgotten, that they'll be remembered for not only what they gave this game, but just as importantly, guys, what they gave this country.
Well, Bob, you mentioned like it was, I guess, an office at one point. Like, what's it been like seeing the growth, and what do you want to see it grow into?
It's been amazing. It has been such an incredible journey, fellas, for a little museum that no one gave any chance of succeeding. You know, most museums start with seed money already in place. There's an endowment already in place. As we like to say, we started this museum with a hope and a prayer. But we had a dedicated few who believed that this story deserved to be preserved, celebrated, and to help educate and inspire future generations. And they very passionately got this thing moving. We went from that one-room office to today about 10,000 square feet of exhibit space that chronicles this story. And of course, we just recently announced our plans to build a new 30+ thousand square foot Negro Leagues Baseball Museum that's going to be built right around the corner from where we are now, adjacent to the historic Paseo YMCA. That's the building that the Negro Leagues were established in Kansas City in 1920. And so we're saving that historic landmark, and then we'll build a new museum adjacent to it, I guess you could say going full circle, right back to the very building that gave birth to the story that we're now charging with preserving. And of course, along this journey, we are today recognized as America's National Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, as deemed and designated so by the United States Congress. So it's been a remarkable journey for a little museum that nobody gave any chance of succeeding. And I'm thrilled to have had a small hand in helping grow this institution and looking forward to this next exciting, challenging phase of growth for Buck's Museum.
So you mentioned, Mo sitting there, Ichiro, like, what's it like today with today's players? Do they make a case when they come to Kansas City to make a point, to visit, to kind of understand that history, and how important is that to you to continue that branch to what's going on today in today's game?
It never gets old for me. It really does. Every time a young athlete, and I don't care what color he might be.
Right.
Anytime we get a young athlete that comes in here, man, I get excited. And, it's really interesting to see, and it fills my heart with joy, that early on, I had to call the teams to try to convince them to come. Now we've seen a polar shift in that. They are now calling me, wanting to come to the museum. And Mo, our good friend, longtime Red Sox radio broadcaster Joe Castiglione.
That's
he is an amazing human being.
Yeah.
Every year the Sox came to town, Joe made it a point to bring somebody by here. He brought Jackie Bradley, he brought Mookie Betts, he brought a host of other guys every time he came into Kansas City. And now that he's retired, they kept the tradition going. They brought a team of folks by here. A lot of the broadcasters came by here, and it's become kind of a tradition. And I hope that tradition continues in Joe's honor. I miss seeing him in Kansas City. We traded messages the other day, and so I know he's enjoying retirement. But man, he was a godsend for this museum and one of those who became such a powerful advocate, a powerful voice for this museum. So yeah, anytime we get those young athletes, and really, guys, it doesn't even matter what sports discipline they play. We welcome all of them. And I always enjoy telling the stories. I love seeing their response to the stories because as athletes, professional athletes, you know how difficult this game is to play. Mo, this game is tough to play under the best of circumstances.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no less the conditions in which they had to play the game, not knowing where you could get something to eat, not having a place to stay, so they sleep on the bus and eat their peanut butter and crackers. But see, fellas, their spirits were such that, okay, if I've got to sleep on the bus and if I've got to eat my peanut butter and crackers, I'm going to keep playing ball. And that's the spirit that you feel here. They just love the game. And when you talk to those Negro League players, I know it's easy for people to look at the hardships. And we have a tendency in our society to want to dwell on those kinds of aspects. But they wanted you to know how much they enjoyed playing this game, the love that they had. And Mo, you know they had to love it in order to endure the things that they had to endure. But it was all bolstered by a just unabashing love of the game. That's what drove them.
Who was the Negro Leagues player that in your opinion, we know the great names, we Larry Doby, Jackie Robinson, Satchel Paige, we know these names.
Yes.
Who was the other player that didn't get the recognition that really deserved the recognition also?
There are a lot of unsung heroes of the Negro Leagues, and I'm gonna give you two names that I particularly love talking about when people come to the museum because there are a host of them. But one is the great Oscar Charleston.
Okay.
And Buck O'Neil would say without hesitation, the greatest baseball player he ever saw. Now, he thought Willie Mays to be the greatest major leaguer. And most people concur because, as you both know, Willie Mays could beat you every way in which you could be beaten. He could beat you with his bat, with his arm, with his legs, with his glove. And, of course, Willie Mays' illustrious professional baseball career began as a 17-year-old kid patrolling center field for the Birmingham Black Barons. But Buck believed the great Oscar Charleston, who on our field of legends, we got these life-size statues, he's in center field. He believes that he is the greatest baseball player he ever saw. Oscar Charleston was an early era Negro leaguer who could do everything. The consummate five-tool player. Hit for power, hit for average, could field, could run, could throw. In 1921, fellas, while then playing for the St. Louis Giants in the Negro Leagues, he put together one of the greatest single seasons, not in black baseball history, but in baseball history, when he led the Negro Leagues in home runs, triples, doubles, stolen bases, and batting average in the same season. Wow. Man, he was something special. And Buck says, Mo, he never saw a center fielder who could go back on a ball the way Oscar Charleston could, including the legendary Willie Mays. So he played a very shallow center field, uncanny instincts. He just seemed to know where that ball was coming down right off the crack of the bat. And as I always tell the story, you remember the great catch that Willie Mays makes in the World Series? Yeah. That great running over-the-shoulder basket catch. And honestly, guys, the throw was better than the catch. But the magnitude of that moment being the World Series, he runs a country mile to make that great over-the-shoulder basket catch. Well, all the old-timers in the Negro League say, had that been Oscar Charleston,
he would have been under it.
He'd have been waiting for that ball to come down.
Wow.
And And the other guy that I want to talk about is the great Cuban ball player by the name of Martin de Higo. His nickname was El Maestro, the master, because he could do it all. Played all 9 positions, played all 9 of them well.
Wow.
He is the only baseball player in the history of our sport to be enshrined into 5 different countries' baseball halls of fame. He's in the Mexican, Cuban, Venezuelan, Dominican, and in Cooperstown. Mo, one year in the Mexican League, De Higo wins the pitching title. He goes 19-2 with a ridiculous 0.90 ERA. Oh, but it gets even better. The sucker hits .387 that same season and won the batting title on top of that. I mean, that makes no sense. But what makes even less sense, guys, is that virtually no one knows who the heck Martin de Higo is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now, if you're from Cuba, you likely know that name. But most baseball fans have never heard that name. How could that be? A player of that magnitude. And my dear friend, former late great Hall of Famer Monty Irvin would describe him in this fashion, that he was a beautiful ball player. 6'3", 6'4", picturesque. You ripped, could do everything. An arm that would rival Roberto Clemente. I mean, he had it all. And nobody knows who the heck he is.
Listen, I could sit here and let me ask you another question, and I think this is important.
Uh-huh.
When you finally, how long were you working on the statistics of the Negro Leagues being brought into the major? How long did that take, and how gratifying was that for you?
It took about 4 years. If you go back to December of 2020, and of course we were in the throes of a worldwide pandemic. We had the murder of George Floyd, so there was social unrest in this country. And Commissioner Rob Manfred on December 16th of 2020 announced first and foremost that the major leagues were finally going to recognize the Negro Leagues for what we already knew it to be, a major league, and that it was going to roll the statistics of the Negro Leagues into the record books of Major League Baseball. It took a little over 3, almost 4 years for this dream team of Negro League historians and researchers to pull all the quantitative data together that literally changed the course of history and certainly changed the record books as of May 29th of last year. And it was extraordinarily gratifying, as you could well imagine. This was a watershed moment, I should dare say, not only for Negro Leagues history, but American history. Because with one stroke of the pen, history was absolutely rewritten.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And these legends of the Negro League took their proper place in baseball, in the throes of baseball history.
Do you consider that the most gratifying or your most the biggest achievement in your tenure?
It certainly ranks up there. But you know what I think has been the most gratifying thing that I think this museum has ever done?
Okay.
Was putting the Negro Leagues in the video game MLB The Show. Now, I can't even begin to tell you how
crazy over that. It goes crazy with that game.
Man, Mo, it is by far
that's awesome.
One of the biggest things this museum has ever done, and I'll tell you why. Because what has happened now is that millions upon millions of young kids and young adults are now learning about the Negro Leagues because we put them in the video game. I don't think I realized just how prolific the gaming community actually was, how expansive it was. Hell, I hadn't played a video game in decades. And this thing has just been, on fire. Every single day, I see kids coming to this museum because they saw the museum in the video game and they want to meet the guy that's telling the stories in the video game, me. And they come in and they want to show me how Satchel did his double pump wind up, how he did his high leg kick, and they want to throw the b-ball like Satchel threw the b-ball. Because in the video game, Satchel is the only pitcher in the game that has names for his pitches. Because, fellas, Satchel actually
I'm
did
going crazy
name.
over this EA
Loves it.
Sports.
Yeah, he
You're
named his
loving it.
pitches. And so Satchel had his midnight creeper. He had the two humper. He had the bat dodger. He had the hesitation pitch. He had the long tom, the short tom, the jump ball, the trouble ball, the radio ball, the wobbly ball, the dipsy do. And he had a pitch that he famously called his b-ball. You know why he called it the b-ball? Because Satchel would say, it bees where I want it to be when I want it to be there.
Bob, there's so much history. There's so many people, so many guys, so many stories. In some ways, so much heartache, so much laughter, and so much joy. What is the story that you can tell over and over and over again about the history of the Negro Leagues, and you never get tired of telling it?
Well, it starts with me with the legendary Rube Foster. Rube Foster was the architect of creating the Negro Leagues, one of the most brilliant minds in baseball history, and virtually no one knows who he is. Rube Foster, Mo, is the rarest of baseball figures who would have gone in the Hall of Fame as a player, as a manager, and as an executive. Wow. And guys, you don't find many, if any, that check all three boxes. He had been a great pitcher in the early era of black baseball. As a matter of fact, he is credited with having invented what we now know to be the screwball. Back then it was called a fadeaway, and Rube perfected that pitch. So much so that the great Major League manager John McGraw would sneak Rube into his camp so that Rube Foster could teach Christy Mathewson how to throw the screwball. Christy Mathewson, fellas, threw the pitch all the way into the National Baseball Hall of Fame that he learned from Rube Foster. But Foster was best known as this visionary, this tremendous leader. He would organize the Negro Leagues here in that meeting that took place at the Purcell YMCA here in Kansas City, right around the corner from where the museum operates. He would become president of his newly formed Negro National League. He owned the Chicago American Giants, and he managed the Chicago American Giants. And as a manager, he was so tremendously savvy to the point that he was known to fine his ball players at the turn of the 1900s as much as $5 if you were tagged out standing up. Oh no, you were supposed to
You need
slide.
that now.
He would draw a circle down the first base line and a circle down the third base line. And if every one of his players couldn't drop a bunt inside that circle, he would fine them.
I like
was
it. I like
adamant.
it.
He
I
was
need to find
adamant
more
about the
history.
style of play that became signature Negro Leagues baseball. Fast, aggressive, and daring.
So you guys, your Hall of Game that this class is going in this year. This is going to go in later the fall. Tell us about your class, and then Bob, for those who don't know, like, how is the class picked every year? Like, is it a vote? Is it a committee? Like, how do you decide upon it?
Yeah, I'm the committee.
One man, one idea. I like it. Make it easy.
But this year we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the great Frank Robinson becoming the Major's first full-time African-American manager. Think about that, fellas. 50 years. 50 years ago, we got our first African-American manager in Major League Baseball history. Jackie Robinson breaks the color barrier in 1947. 28 years after Jackie breaks the color barrier, we finally get the first black manager, full-time manager in Major League Baseball history. And because we dedicated this to Frank's 50th anniversary, we built an exhibit called Leaders and Innovators that looks back at the legendary managers and executives of the Negro Leagues. So this year's class is inspired by our tribute to Frank Robinson. And so we went and got 4 of the greatest African-American managers in Major League Baseball history.
Cito?
Dusty Baker, Cito Gaston, Jerry Manuel, and Willie Randolph to make our exciting class of 2025 for induction into our Hall of Game. And I couldn't be more proud of this group. Cito Gaston won 2 World Series.
Mm-hmm.
Dusty Baker, of course, won a World Series. And they're both groundbreaking, pioneering types of individuals who were just tremendous leaders of men. And the same could be said for Jerry and Willie. We hope that there will be more opportunities afforded for people of color to manage at the major league level. So for us to create this new exhibition that goes back historically and looks at these great baseball minds, brilliant baseball minds, who never got the opportunity. They didn't transition into Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball looked at the playing field, but those managers and those executives, they didn't get opportunities for front office jobs. And so we wanted to reflect on that and help people understand the brilliance that was throughout the Negro Leagues. It wasn't just isolated on the playing field. Now, Buck O'Neil would become the first African-American coach in Major League Baseball history in 1962. Buck O'Neil could have very easily been the first black manager in Major League Baseball. George Altman, who played for Buck here with the Monarchs and then later went on and had a tremendous Major League career, still with us, says to this day that Buck O'Neil was the greatest manager he ever played for. He just knew how to handle men. He said he knew when to kick you in the rump, and he knew when to put his arm around you and console you. You know, and it was just a powerful voice and just knowledgeable of the game. And he becomes a coach, but that opportunity never becomes afforded to him to manage. And there were a litany of other brilliant baseball minds who just never got the opportunity.
What was the reaction you got when you gave him the news about it?
It's been tremendously well received. I mean, you know, you're talking about not only 4 great baseball minds, but 4 quality human beings.
Yes.
I mean, you start talking about Dusty Baker, Cito Gaston, Willie Randolph, and Jerry Manuel. They are Hall of Fame people who just happen to have a tremendous impact on our game, and they are all still giving back to this game today. You know, Joe Cartermo lives here in Kansas City. And, of course, Joe hit that home run that every kid dreams of.
Yep.
You know, when he hit that home run to win that World Series, Joe and Cito, neither one of them will ever have to buy a meal anytime they in Toronto because the fans there still adore them. And to be able to welcome Cito Gaston here, again, because a number of years ago we recognized him with the Jackie Robinson Lifetime Achievement Award, but now to see him inducted into the Hall of Game is going to be really special for all of us. And what can you say about Dusty Baker that hasn't already been said? To me, he is one of the most important figures in baseball history. See, when your career is so expansive that you carry Satchel Paige's fishing poles. He used to carry Satchel's fishing poles when Satchel was with the Braves for one season when they thought he didn't have enough tenure to get his major league pension. And Dusty was a rookie with the Braves, and he would carry Satchel's fishing pole to being on deck when Henry Aaron hits record home run 715, to having this great playing career yourself and then becoming an African-American manager and winning a World Series. I mean, you've pretty much done everything you could do in this game.
Listen, I got to ask you this because we always talk about, you know, some of our great players in the game. What was the average park size that players played in? You got Fenway Park 289 down the line, Yankee Stadium over in the olden days. Guys hitting 60 home runs at the fort, you know, with their short porch. What did the Negro League players? What size parks were they playing in?
They were playing in many of the same stadiums that you just mentioned because they were playing in major league ballparks. They were renting the ballparks. There was only maybe 3 Negro League teams that had their own stadiums.
Okay.
But by and large, they were renting the major league stadiums, which is one of the reasons, guys, it took so long to integrate. Major League Baseball was making money off the Negro Leagues. They were renting their ballparks, and in most cases, they were outdrawing the Major League teams in their own ballpark. The Homestead Grays, who had homes, they split their home between Pittsburgh and then later D.C. before they moved to D.C. They played in old Griffith Stadium there in D.C., the home of the Washington Senators. The Homestead Grays were outdrawing the Washington Senators. The Birmingham Black Barons played at Rickwood Field in Birmingham. The Chicago American Giants played in Comiskey Park. They're in the South Side in Chicago.
Okay.
And so, yeah, they were playing games in Yankee Stadium. Of course, over in Paterson, New Jersey, Hinchcliffe Stadium, one of the few stadiums that is left that the Negro Leagues played in, Hinchcliffe, Rickwood Field, League Park in Cleveland, and Hamtramck in Detroit are the only 4 remaining ballparks that played host to Negro League games on a regular basis. And so, but yeah, they were playing in many of the same stadiums that these major league teams were playing. So, yeah, those left-handed hitters love that short right field porch there in Yankee Stadium.
You all benefited from it. That's all. I want to make sure. That's all.
But here's one, Josh Gibson. Everybody talks about the fact that Josh Gibson.
Please, no, don't say it. So, my Negro League guy that I am enamored with is the great Josh Gibson.
Yeah.
I want to know everything you tell me about him. When I was a kid and I didn't even know what I was watching, I'm sure I was in my early teens, but I jumped in. I sit with my dad at home, and they were talking about the Negro Leagues, and I'm sure it was at the end of the program, and there was going to be a game, and all of a sudden, they got to the park and everybody was warming up and they're about to play the game, and the rain came down. And I didn't understand the background. I had tears flowing because I wanted to see them play. And now I know the story. You understand what I mean? I know the story now as an adult. But tell me about, because that's my favorite, is Josh.
Yeah, and that was a scene from a great movie called Soul of the Game.
There we go.
That starred Blair Underwood as Jackie Robinson, Delroy Lindo as Satchel Paige, and Michael T. Williamson as Josh Gibson. And let me tell you, Josh Gibson is almost mythical-like with his power, but the power was real. It was very real. I tell people in lore, Babe Ruth would be Paul Bunyan.
Right.
Josh Gibson would be John Henry. He was just incredibly powerful, and Buck O'Neil would describe him as a jolly giant of a man. He was about 6 foot, 6'1", weighed about 220, 225, just ripped. Big, powerful forearms, big, massive hands, big, powerful thighs, had that trademark rolled up left sleeve showing off those guns, and great eyes. Buck would describe him in this fashion, that he had the eyes of Ted Williams and the power of Babe Ruth rolled into one dynamic package. As he would say, his outs were loud outs. The third baseman and the shortstop were damn near in left field when Gibson came to the plate, because you ain't creeping in on him because you might get killed. I guess you could say that was the Negro League's version of a shift. They were basically saying, Josh, if you want to bunt it, you can have it. Yeah, we'll take that, man. And
catching style.
Easy. And he was throwing guys out from the crouch, which is what makes him so incredible, because he's putting up these incredible offensive numbers, and he was doing it as a catcher. And he wasn't a good catcher. He was a great catcher. As I said, rifle arm. He was throwing guys out from the crouch, had complete control of his pitching staff, so he called a great game and was a good running catcher. He gonna steal you 20, 25 bases to go with that big bat of his. And guys, when I say big bat, I mean big bat. 40 ounce, 41 inches. Man, you got to be a man to swing that kind of lumber.
I'm a disciple of the lumber company, so I was swinging 36, 36. But 40, 41, man, you gotta have the hands of, of the.
Oh man, and as Buck would say, he didn't take the big looping swings.
You got
short, compact, right to the ball. And as I say, everybody talks about the ball that he hit out of Yankee Stadium. And he did. He hit the ball completely out of Yankee Stadium. Mickey Mantle hit one that hit the light stanchions in old Yankee Stadium, or it would have gone out. Right. Gibson hit it completely out. But I think maybe even more impressive, and you appreciate this having known what old Yankee Stadium was like. He hit a ball in the right field upper deck when he was fooled on a changeup with one hand. Yeah, he's fooled on a changeup, reached out, hit the ball in the right field upper deck in Yankee Stadium. And they said he was running around the bases, and he's just giggling because, I mean, he was so strong. I don't think Josh realized just how strong he was. He the kind of guy that could poke you in the arm, and it would hurt. Yeah.
Well, that's always been my guy, you know. It was like the myth and the legend, and you hear the talk, and then when all of the numbers came together, yes. I was so happy because it really I was happy for everybody, but him being, you know, the one that I always thought about, and I was so glad that he got his due in terms of what he was, how powerful he was, and how good he was. I was very happy to be able to think about it on that level.
He's now your all-time career batting average leader, 372. Single season batting record in 1943 of 466. Fellas, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that ain't going to be broken.
No. I think we're good. He's going to be good. He's good.
Bob, for anybody who hasn't gone to the museum, is there something like that?
Me, I haven't been.
Mo says you gotta go.
You gotta come see me.
I'm putting it down. I'm sorry.
But is there like a first thing, like you like this is the first thing like you gotta see, like right as soon as you walk through the doors?
Well, see, what I love about the way the museum is set up like you've just walked into an old ballpark. And so when you walk in, the first thing you see is the baseball field. But here it is called the Field of Legends. And obviously I'm biased, but I think it's one of the most amazing displays in any museum anywhere in the world. And it features 10 life-sized bronze sculptures of Negro League greats, and they're cast in position as if they were playing a game. And they represent 10 of the first group of Negro Leaguers to be inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. So that's how our all-star team was chosen. And then on the outside, looking in, is the late, great Buck O'Neil. So he's managing this great all-star team that we assemble. And when people get there, you're looking through this old chicken wire backstop. And so you can see onto the field, but you can't get to the field. You can't get to the field until you learn their story. And then after you've learned their story, the very last thing that happens at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum is now you can take the field. You've now earned the right to walk out on the field with these 10 of the baddest brothers to ever play this game. They could play, man. And even the chicken wire backstop is symbolic because during that era of American segregation, if black fans were allowed in to watch a major league game, we were oftentimes separated by chicken wire. So black fans would sit either down the left or right field lines, and then we'd be separated from white fans who sat in the rest of the ballpark with a chicken wire barrier. We used that same chicken wire to separate all of our visitors from the centerpiece of our exhibition, that being the Field of Legends. And let me tell you, when you walk out on that field, you feel their spirits. Yeah, you got Satchel on the mound. Gibson is catching. That's one heck of a battery, man. Page to Gibson.
I gotta go. I'm doing a disservice. I love the game and everything about it. I gotta come.
You gotta come. You gotta come see me. You got a standing invitation.
We're gonna connect with Cell and I'm gonna alert you. And
okay. All right. I'm looking forward to it.
Bob Kendrick, we appreciate the time. This has been the Mo Vaughn podcast, powered by Perfect Game and the Vaughn Sports Academy. We appreciate it. This was a thrill. Enjoyed it. And thanks for spending time with us.
Man, it's my absolute pleasure. It's great to catch up with you both. Thank y'all for the opportunity to be on the show. And like I said, I look forward to welcoming you both to Kansas City and to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum.
What an honor, man. Thank you for taking the time, Bobby.
Anytime, y'all. Thanks for having me.